In 2019, I did a Facebook Live training. I can't remember exactly which month it was, but I think it was in summer. And I happened to mention on the side, and without actually planning anything, about my suicide attempt when I was 12 years old. I'd never shared that with anyone, ever. And it literally slipped out of my mouth and on that live, which kind of shocked me. I couldn't edit it out or hide as I had been for so many years, ashamed of what I had done. But that day, it triggered an inner trauma that had to be dealt with for me to want to live life. It's actually really interesting now when I talk about my suicide attempt. I'm a very strong woman in mind, body, and soul, and one of the most positive people you'll probably know. I always see a rainbow for every flood. So when I speak of my suicide attempt, it's 99% of the time gets brushed off as something that's absolutely impossible for me, as a strong personality to have ever attempted it by a lot of friends and family. Have you ever experienced that or heard that, confessing to something that has been burdening you for such a long time and having it brushed off to make you kind of believe that it's just a figment of your imagination, perhaps? And I've personally been working on the topic of mental health and anxiety, depression, and suicide for about 2 or 3 years now. And I'm at no cost at all an expert in this. I wanted to solve this mystery for myself and on the journey. And I just want to share with you conversations with people that I have had that have helped me. Because honestly, the way that I pulled myself out of this deep depressive hole of suicide thoughts daily was just being able to talk about it and not being ashamed or feeling guilty about it. There weren't any solutions. It was just talking and getting it out in the open and seeing it for what it was and then releasing it. But through it all, being seen and validated too. Now, it's natural for us to want to be seen and heard and recognized. And if you want to know more about this topic, read anything and all from Brené Brown, who researches it all and makes sense of the logic, science, and woo-woo. And today on this episode, the conversation I have with 3 guests where we will be speaking about suicide. But please note, none of us are suicide experts. In other words, we don't work in this field. We have only experienced the journey for ourselves and work a lot with mindset and being able to converse about this. It's part of our business, part of our lives, but we do recommend also getting in contact with someone for professional help for suicide, just to make that clear here as well. So on the episode today, I have Mark Stephen Pooler, who is a self-leadership and transformation expert. He's a professional speaker, radio host, and public speaking coach. As a creative entrepreneur, Mark has overcome the kind of adversity that most people cannot even comprehend, which kind of takes my breath away. He has taken the resilience from his past trauma and turned it into inspirational determination for others. Now, after years of severely being bullied, Mark turned to a drug addiction and started down a dark road of self-destruction that nearly ended his life. And after having the strength to overcome his addictions, and this isn't just happening overnight, it's a long process, he rebuilt his life stronger than ever. He's now a professional speaker, coach, radio host. His area of expertise is self-leadership and transformation. He helps struggling entrepreneurs create a mindset and belief system that makes their success a reality. Our other guest is the gorgeous Future Forward Hub resident contributor, Gareth Stubbs, a recovering drug addict, physical and mental abuse survivor, former self-harmer, and fortunate enough to have survived a near-fatal suicide attempt. Gareth lives with rapid cycle bipolar disorder as well as schizophrenia, but does not let it get in the way of him living a normal in inverted commas, and happy life. Gareth has written and published 3 books, each specifically written to help people with different aspects of their personal journey in life, 2 of which won an award in 2018 at the Janie Loves Platinum Awards. In 2017, Gareth ran the London Marathon as an official Heads Together runner and was the official representative for CALM, the campaign against living miserably. What a cool name. A charity committed to reducing suicide amongst men. And 4, who is now an official volunteer mentor for the Calm Running Collective. And lastly, but of course not least, the effervescent and incredible Tanya, Arler, a mindset coach, my personal savior when it came to my journey on just being allowed to converse about my depth of depression, anxiety, and suicide. Tanya is about real change right now. Her unique techniques create deep shifts and aha moments that will help you shape your life into exactly what you want it to be. She listens deeply, I can confirm that, responds authentically, double confirm that, and guides you wholeheartedly. She's a shapeshifter that gets the switch switched on or off as needed. And I'm your host, Sashka Regina, CEO and founder of Brand Sashka and Future Forward Hub and Events, mama to 3 teenagers currently, as they grow up really fast, a city expat living in a rural farm town, making an impact around the world by living my purpose to its fullest. I'm an author of the book Sold Out, Your Guide to Finding Your Life Purpose, being featured on Forbes, Yahoo Finance, BuzzFeed, Thrive Global, Coach, and other incredible publications. What do I want to be known for? The woman who took the bull by the horns and made shit happen, no matter what. Never giving up, living my purpose of leadership, and ensuring that I always left the scene I entered in a better place and space of purpose, action, and living life large. And so, without further ado, let's dive in today's episode. All right, so I have all of you wonderful people. I just started recording. Hello, everyone, and welcome. And I'm really grateful for everyone being here. For the listeners, as well as Gareth and Mark and Tanya, and of course myself, because I'm special too. So let's get straight into this juicy conversation about mental health, in particular suicide, self-compassion, forgiveness. And I'd love to start with you, Mark. I would love to know why you chose to want to live life and what has given your life a purpose.
So I would say self-development and self-improvement really changed my life. When I got into network marketing, I really started to get into personal development. I didn't do that, Sashka, until the age of 30. I'm 39 now, so it was later in life. I really started to work on my own belief systems. And up until that point, I was a hairdresser and I didn't really have great self-belief in myself. I didn't know the world of entrepreneurship and creating my own reality. It was later in life I started working on that. When I was 21, I was addicted to crack cocaine and heroin and collapsed and died from drug use. So we can chat a little bit more about that later. But when I left school, that is a key moment. I wanted to do drama, acting, television, and my mum kind of said to me, as parents do, you need to get a real job. And that was why I chose to go into hairdressing. So I wasn't fully following my own passions. So later in life, when I started working on self-development and self-improvement, I started to follow my passions. So now I'm just launching a television show. I'm a radio host. I do press, media and PR. And that is why I'm following my passions now. I'm really going back to what I wanted to do as a youngster, but I didn't have the opportunity to do it.
I love that, Mark. Ooh, that's it's a big thing to go to, first dropping dead and then just kind of like, coming back from that. It's very mildly spoken about now, but actually me, the empathic Sashka, is going, I'm lying dead on the floor. How do you come back from that? How do you want to live life from that when wasn't it peaceful being dead? And then deciding to go, oh no, I'm going to come back and live this chaotic life and find personal development or find peace with myself and live my life. Where was you? I don't know. Answer that for me. I have questions.
So my life spiraled out of control. I was bullied throughout my childhood for about the way I looked, about my sexuality at primary school before I knew it myself. That led to me having low self-esteem, low self-confidence. I got a really bad education from school. I left school at the age of 15. And I started drug taking. It started on soft drugs to start with, and then it spiraled out of control at the age of 21, being addicted to crack cocaine and heroin. I went out on a party night with friends, tried a new clubbing drug, having the time of my life 1 minute, and the next minute I woke up in hospital, chest all shaven, where shot pads had been used on me to bring me back to life. Bruises all up my arms where adrenaline had been pumped into me to bring me back to life. I was living a bad life. I had no direction for my future, no goals that I was working on, low self-esteem, low self-confidence, suffering from stress, anxiety, and depression. Now, you would have thought that would be a wake-up call, Sashka, because I had just collapsed and died. I actually went out after getting admitted from the hospital, and I went out and carried on partying and taking ecstasy the same day that I had just died. Sticky pads on my chest still from the hospital. That was how low my self-esteem and low self-confidence and not having those goals for the future was. And it was a few days after that, my mum at the time caught me in my bedroom taking crack cocaine and heroin. She did one of the best things she could have done for me, and that was to run outside with the crack pipe, chuck it down the drain, and she kicked me out of the family home. So it went from me having everything done for me, as in washing, food on the table, to me having my own apartment and having to look after myself. I had to move away from all the associations that were dragging me down. It really is true. People either lift you up or they drag you down. I moved away from all the bad associations. It was a slow road to recovery, to answer your questions. I did give up crack cocaine and heroin straight away just by using the power of my mind. I didn't see a medical doctor. I didn't use substitute drugs. I used the power of thought. That's why it's important to look after the thoughts that you put into your mind. I would like to add it's important to seek help of medical assistance. That's what they are there for. Even though I didn't choose that route, no one should suffer alone. I read my first Law of Attraction book age 21, and that was when I thought it's really important that you focus on the thoughts that you're putting into your mind, because it does have an impact on your outer reality. So I did start using the power of thought and law of attraction very early on, but like I mentioned, it was a slow road to recovery. I did carry on partying for a fair few years and taking softer drugs, but it was just a slow road to recovery, to answer your question, Sashka.
As it is, as personal development is, I mean, Gareth knows this way as well. Over to you, Gareth. Thank you, Mark. What makes your life as a diagnosed schizophrenic and bipolar grief counselor, cook, worth living? What is your reason to live?
I think, I don't really have an external reason, to be perfectly honest. I used to, when I first started on this road, and I used to say, okay, well, I will kind of like sort myself out for my kids, and then my kids got taken away from me. And then I thought, well, what's the point? But then in that moment, it's like, well, there must be a point somewhere, so I'm just going to do it day by day. And now, as selfish as it sounds, I do it for me, because I'm the only one that can live my life. I'm the only one that can give, like Mark was saying about the power of thoughts and the power of beliefs, I'm the only one that can give my own life meaning. And when I give my life meaning, I can give it whatever meaning I want. When I give my life meaning, then, it helps me get out of bed. So for me, like with cooking and all that sort of stuff, there's a meaning behind all of it. And that's what drives me every day. And to be totally honest, I just do it one day at a time. Because before it used to be, like I never wanted to live past 30, and I almost succeeded. So for me, every day after 30 is a bonus day. And when I go to bed at night, it's like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to see if I can get through the day again. So that's kind of like my reason. It might sound a little bit selfish, but you know what they say, you've got to put your oxygen mask on first. And it took me long enough to learn that, and I learned it the hard way. But when I put my oxygen mask on first, I can be there for people a lot more. And I just made a promise. Like, if I survive, I think we spoke, I don't know, if I survive until I'm 40, that's what I said when I woke up from my near-death experience. If I've survived till I'm 40, then I will give up everything and dedicate my life to helping others. I'm 47, turning 48 this year, and that's what I've been doing for the last 8 years, keeping my promise.
Things like that is just, for me, the power of the mind. Me, personally, I fed it a lot with lots of pretty words and lots of pretty quotes until I had to actually live it. And that living it, in both instances, it's not just words, but actually the knowledge put into action. Then it became real. Then it became a reason for myself. And how often have we heard of the analogy of putting the oxygen mask on yourself first before on anyone else? And you just go, yeah, until you really need it. And then you go, I'm really the first one that needs it, not someone else.
Yeah.
So, Tanya, you are probably one of the happiest people that I know. Not that happy things happen to you all the time, because that's not the case, but no matter what comes your way, you choose, or your response to whatever's coming your way is to trust that the universe has your back. How did you get to this space?
Hi, Sashka. Gosh, so it's so interesting hearing, these two amazing men tell their story. That I have in common with them is definitely there was a moment. I remember when I was younger, when I was in my teens, I was bullied. And when I was in my early 20s, I had a sexually and psychologically abusive relationship. And when that kind of ended, I went into quite a bit of a depression. And there was a moment, and they both described a moment, but the moment in my life was, I choose to continue to believe in love. I believe in love. And although all the evidence around me and then the people that I attracted around me were like, men are crap and love is nothing, something inside me knew that that's what I needed to hold on to, and that's what I needed to believe in. And it led me to reading books, experimenting and learning. And I think Mark, I got this, accidentally bumped into a class called The Power of Positive Thoughts. And it was the beginning of, wow, you can take control of your life and you can choose what you let in and what you don't let in. And like Mark said, and Gareth, it's a journey. It's not like it works in one go. And when I talk to people about it, your mind is a muscle, and you need to practice and you need to exercise. And over the years, I think I just started experimenting with, send me a sign, or, I use my affirmations to manifest. And what I thought was really interesting is even you had to be vigilant, or I had to be vigilant to recognize when good things were happening. Because when you're that low, even when something good does happen, you're so used to only seeing the bad, you don't even see it. So it was really working with my mind and training it, pushing negative thoughts out, and slowly but asking for signs or trying to manifest things. And when they happen, acknowledging them, recognizing them, and slowly but surely you come to believe them. Mm-hmm. I think my mantra for over 15 years was the universe will provide. And I think I stuck with that when those moments came in my life where it was just too overwhelming and it was just too much going on. I remember somewhere kind of mid-30s that I just threw up my hands up in the air and said, I got to hand it over to you, and just believe that the universe always has my best interest at heart, even when I don't understand it. And I think something that Sashka's referring to is bad, stuff happening. Just, 2 years ago, my husband was diagnosed with leukemia, and it was just sitting there going, I don't understand why this is happening, but that doesn't mean it's not okay. And it doesn't, this is, for whatever reason, this is what has happened to me. And I pushed, because of all my practice, I pushed the fear out, not completely, because there's a healthy level of fear, but I didn't allow the fear to spiral in my world. And I didn't allow the negativity and all that kind of things to take hold. And that was, again, through that exercise of just pushing it out. And what I've learned over the years is if you can not connect with that negativity that more often than not is imposed by other people's thoughts, you can find the space to say, okay, what do I need to do? What can I do right here and right now? And stay in the moment and not extrapolate and imagine, but stay in the moment and say, I'm going to do everything I can do right now. And I'm just going to trust that means it'll be okay. So it's a journey, and it takes practice, but I got there, and I think that answers the question. I'm not sure. But.
Yeah. I mean, I know when I first met Tanya, for myself, I was just like, the universe has got my what? The who? Like, I'm all science and logic and all this woo-woo. And I was like, excuse me? This is meant to happen for a reason, a purpose. Like, how? Why am I this is absolute bullshit. No. And it took me because my whole life I've been in control of everything. Not saying that I have healthy control now and I push when it's healthy, but it's a long process. It's a long process, and creating a life that you want to live is easy. It is easy to do. It can be achieved. And the tools you need, as we've heard, there's mindset, reframing, working on your inner child, shadow and trauma work, grief, addressing childhood, how it's influenced your behaviors, personality, and character. I can talk about it freely now because I've gone through all that shit. So have all of you. But there are a lot of listeners that are going, who? Mindset? What? How? Reframing? And yet even the strongest of strongest with all the tools, and I can confess to this, can find that suicide is an answer to the total depth of lostness that someone's feeling. You might still have everything that most people want and still feel, why am I even here? For me, it was learning to stop talking to myself and start listening to myself, which shifted a lot of perspective for living life. Gareth, you've chosen to live, to create the life that you want to live. And there's a lot of exciting things, the last 8 years dedicating to people to help them. What is it that life, or what are the steps that you're taking to make it happen? Like, what have the steps been besides mindset or reframing?
I think that the biggest step that anyone, or the biggest step that I took, it's not for me to say what other people can and can't do. The biggest step that I took was getting to know myself. Because once I got to know myself and dealt with all the labels that I gave myself and the beliefs that I had, I could then start to kind of like say, okay, well, this is what Gareth wants to do. This is what I want to do. But when you don't truly know yourself, you sometimes do things that you think other people think you should do. It's like, oh, well, maybe I'll do this, a little bit like what Mark was saying. His parents wanted him to do X, Y, Z. It's like, no, like for me, I kind of like allow myself time every now and then to just daydream and say, okay, well, this is who I am and this is what I would like to do. And who I am can do anything. I don't have to tell people. I can tell people. But when I know who I am and I know what I want to do, I'm so much more open to opportunities that come my way, rather than being blinkered on, this is what I'm going to do and I'm going to set my mind on that. And the other thing that has helped me is that my dreams don't have to be cast in stone. I'm perfectly I'm perfectly entitled to change my mind. And I've gone through that this last year. Like, we had a health retreat. We ran it for 6.5 years before Corona happened. We've been unable to do it for almost the last year now. But what it's made me do is it's made me look at it and say, okay, well, that's what I thought my dream was. It's not that anymore. And I'm perfectly allowed to change it. Doesn't mean that I've failed. Doesn't mean that I've gone backwards. It just means that I'm more in touch with who I am and I know more of what I want to do. So that's how I do it, and can do anything every day within reason.
I love it. Now, since my dad's passing, so it's just like, fuck it. I'm just living today. I don't care what's happening tomorrow. I'm doing it today. Tanya, thank you, Gareth. Tanya, what tools do you use to listen to yourself rather than talk to yourself to get yourself to the life that you want to live?
I love that you use the terms talk and listen. I haven't heard that before, but I think it's such a good way of putting it. The way I learned is kind of and it kind of ties in a little bit to what Gareth said, is that there is this life of duality of what's good and bad in life. And that's kind of what society impresses upon us. It's good to do this and it's bad to do this. And I think that's if you were talk about talking to yourself, I think you're trying to talk yourself into what society wants deems as good and bad. And it's moving from that there is no good and bad. There's only right for me. There's only what is right for me. And that is just listening to yourself and what's inside. And I think, like, this is a silly example, but I remember when my son was 4, he had glandular fever, and the only thing he could do was watch TV all day. And, that was me being a bad mom, allowing my son to watch TV all day, but it was the right thing for him. So if, it's that using that, I suppose, that feeling, that intuition, and understanding that our intuition is just a collection of all the best of ourselves that's true to ourselves. Our intuition isn't clouded by judgment of society or, this good or bad. And so really, either listening to your intuition, if you're not there yet, then just asking yourself, what is right for me? Not worrying about what might be good or bad, deemed good or bad in someone else's world. So I think that's really my difference between talking and listening, and just stepping back. What's right for me? And if it's right for you, then it's right for everyone, not just you. Right?
Oh, you've given me some ding, 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 ding in my mind. Mark, did you banish all the noises in your head, all the people that were talking to you to keep you down? And how did you move past that chatter to live in the life that you're living now?
Firstly, I'd like to say I like Gareth's point about it's okay to change your mind. I say a lot, there's more than one path to the end destination. So don't just get set on one path. There are lots of different ways to the end destination. Also, what Tanya said about intuition, I think intuition is really, really important. Sometimes we ignore our intuition and it always ends up being right. Why did I not listen to my intuition in the first place? I would say for me, gratitude, visualization and meditation is a great starting point. I think when you start focusing on what you do have to be grateful for, that instantly does start to make you feel better. And the more things you think of to be grateful for, more and more things come in your life to be grateful of. And I know it's hard for some people at times, but there is always something to be grateful of. The water that we drink, the food that we have every day, the air that we breathe, being able to look up to the stars. There are so many things to be grateful for. Meditation really does have a big impact on me, and I do it every day. It just stills my mind. It allows me to think better and act better. So meditation is really important for me. And visualization, I always say it's important to visualize a great future, but don't spend too much time there. Everything does happen in the present moment. So being present. As I have got further down my entrepreneurship journey and my own personal development journey, I've got into things like self-hypnosis as well, like audios that I listen to, and they really, really do have a big impact on the way I feel, and I find them very, very effective. But just little things as well. When I was going through ups and downs, I would spend a lot of time in bed, and it's important to get enough sleep, but also you can do the opposite. If you're spending too much time in bed, you can make yourself even more depressed. So try and get up and do a little bit of exercise, even if that's just a dog walk. That will start to really make you start to feel better. I moved away from all the associations that were dragging me down. It is easy to get dragged into other people's drama, to be dragged down by people, Sashka. So just be really intentional about the people that you surround yourself with, because people do either lift you up or they drag you down. And I always say to people, ask yourself the question, with the people you're surrounded by, would you swap places with those people? Because if the answer is no, it's time to change your circle. But just on a last note, take every day as it comes. Every day is not perfect. Even now, I still get days what are lower, some days that are higher. That is perfectly okay. Take little steps to the end destination.
I love that. I'm just going to sum up here because there was so much information, and I'm a big picture thinker, so I like to sum up the big picture. Is just for this, the tools, although it's tools that are part of mindset in terms of meditation and gratitude, and you can change your mind. It's not a big deal. Listening, talking to yourself rather than listening to yourself. When I heard these things, it overwhelmed me personally, because I was like, I don't know where to start as a big picture thinker. And I like to chunk down at the same time. And everyone was talking about, because pretty much like everyone here, I didn't go to professional help. I had conversations. I did a lot of work on myself. I do, however, recommend going to someone professional and qualified. And I know of a few people, if people need to reach out. But for me, it was just listening to all of it and going, hang on a moment. And like you said, Gareth, I had to know who I am. So I have a very active mind. My mind is always on. And I don't know if I have labels or like ADHD or whatever it is. I don't know. But for me, meditation overwhelmed me even more, that I went into a little bit of an anxiety because I was like, I'm not doing it right, because I was putting so much pressure on myself. And I started seeing, and I refused to do a gratitude journal. I was like, it's the biggest load of bullshit. I'm not doing that. And as soon as I started doing it, even on my bad days, being grateful, every morning I write the first thing, my morning coffee. I'm like, thank you for my morning coffee, because it's quiet. It's just quiet. And then when I start seeing the positive, even though there's so much negative that's happening, I start really being grateful. And that is my meditation in calming my anxiety down for me personally. And 100% movement. Get out, dance, something, just get outside. It's the best form of meditation ever. I love my moving meditation. Living a life, I just wanted to add that, living a life that you really love and not choosing the path of suicide requires that you love yourself. That huge step for me, huge. Love has many names and faces: self-compassion, self-worth, self-care, forgiveness, sexuality, beauty. Tanya, how does love in the form of forgiveness give life a chance?
Oh, forgiveness is such an amazingly powerful tool, and it's such a crazy thing. And I think forgiveness is all about self-love, no matter who you're forgiving. I think what's easy to forget with forgiveness is that forgiveness doesn't serve the person you're forgiving. Forgiveness serves yourself, because the person you're angry or upset with or whatever it is, your monkey mind that is going on and on, or angry or upset or whatever it is with this person, it doesn't particularly affect their life in any major way most of the time, but it can consume you. So I'd say the first thing about forgiveness is understanding that the forgiving them is not about them. It's about you. And it's about allowing yourself to find the peace within yourself to say, how I do it is I think, this behavior with unique circumstances and create their life based on whatever their choices are. So I kind of think whatever they need or want or desire or choose or whatever goes wrong will be of their own making. I don't need to contribute to that. That's their thing. So my first thing about forgiveness would be understand it's about finding peace in your heart. And
You gone again.
I'm gonna put myself on a hot spot. Let me try while you're asking the other question. I'm gonna put myself on a hot spot. Okay.
All right. Cool. All right.
Okay.
Mark, how do you show yourself love in the form of self-worth?
I think it's really important to know your own values. So you have to really know what your value is. And sometimes when you're going through tough times, that's really hard to know your own value because you're in self-doubt, your self-talk's not right. And so I've really worked on what I do actually stand for. I stand for honesty, trust, loyalty, and love. And I stand by those values every day. Self-talk's really important as well. Just repeat the question so I know I'm answering it correctly.
How you show yourself love in the form of self-worth?
Yes, so like I mentioned with the values, that's really important. I would definitely go back to the rituals that I do. That is my way of taking care of my mind, my body and my spirit. Gratitude works so well for me. It may not be for everyone. Meditation is my way of showing myself love because it just has such an impact, because when I don't do it, I just don't feel great. So that's my way of self-love. Also, what is really important, Sashka, and the pandemic was great for this. Up until the pandemic, I was just very focused on business, work, achieving my goals. And now, after the pandemic, I realised that my life balance wasn't correct. I was spending a lot of time working and not taking a lot of time for myself. So now I don't work on Saturdays and Sundays. That is my gift to myself. And taking those little rest breaks makes me more productive in the week. but also it's giving me that treat at a weekend, my time. So give yourself the gift of your own time, your own peace, those little rewards for working so hard through the week. That is what I would say I give myself self-love, is by taking those times for time and giving myself the rituals that I stick to that allow me to think, act and feel a lot better.
Because these elements, just these things that I've pulled out at the moment, the self-worth, the love, and we'll come to forgiveness, they play a big part in, I don't want to say numbing down the thoughts of suicide, but choosing to want to create a life that you want to live, because there's so much time that has gone or invested in living someone else's life as opposed to your own, because like Gareth said as well early on, and yourself, you need to know yourself first. Gareth, how do you show yourself love in the form of self-compassion?
I think for me, I have a question that I ask myself every night when I go to bed, and I say to myself, did I do my best today? If the answer is yes, then I congratulate myself. If the answer is no, then I congratulate myself, because tomorrow is a new opportunity to try again. So for me, self-love is just about being. And I know for some people that might sound like a very kind of overwhelming word, but when you know yourself, it's so much easier to be kinder to yourself. When I drop the expectations that I have of myself, it's so much easier to just do the best that I can do, because a lot of times we put expectations on what self-love and self-compassion should look like, but it's going to be different for each and every one of us, and how I practice self-compassion might be very different to how you practice self-compassion. But for me, the biggest key for me, like I say, is that question, did I do my best today? And for me to genuinely answer that, there's no right or wrong answer. Sometimes it's a yes, sometimes it's a no. If it's a yes, well done. If it's a no, well done, because tomorrow you can learn something new. So for me, self-compassion is not beating myself up all the time.
I love that. I love that. Thank you. It took me a long time to understand self-compassion. That was a big thing for me personally, but it was all part of loving myself.
It's a big process.
Yeah. Tanya, how does love in the form of forgiveness, or how have you shown yourself love in the form of forgiveness?
I think forgiveness is such an amazingly important tool, an important thing to realize how it affects us when we're carrying anger or sadness or resentment or whatever towards someone else. It eats us up. And it's remembering that when it comes to forgiveness, forgiveness is about the person who forgiveness serves is you, not the person you're forgiving. The person you're forgiving might not even be affected by all of your feelings and everything going, but you can get consumed by it. So understanding in the first place that the way I look at that when people have done me wrong or behave is I think that person is making their own life and their own choices and their own thing. And they will then manifest a life that reflects that. I don't need to get involved in them. I don't need to think evil. I do not need to wish ill upon them. And understanding that forgiveness, forgiving them really frees me and disconnects me. And more importantly, doesn't give that other person the power to affect my life anymore. They're not taking the power. You're giving it to them by not forgiving. So I think forgiveness that's one thing that's really important, is understanding forgiveness is for you. And second of all, the thing with forgiveness is forgiving yourself. Like I had to forgive myself for not being perfect. And I think there's so much pressure around us from society, from within ourselves, of doing everything right and being the best we can be all the time. And it's like, I'm human. And being able to forgive yourself for making mistakes and, being like Gareth was just saying, you know, on the days he does the best he can, great. That's awesome. And on the days he doesn't, he's got another chance tomorrow. That's also awesome. And I loved how he talked about, you know, self-compassion is just allowing yourself to be whoever you are in that moment. And that for me is also forgiveness. It's forgive yourself for feeling ashamed of things that you've done. Forgive yourself for feeling bad. So I think forgiveness is a super important tool to find peace in yourself, because through forgiveness, you take control of your own thoughts and your own life back, because you're no longer letting other things influence you that have no business being there.
I love that. And it's also in the form, because you're grieving and mourning, losing old you, although it's still part of you. And just that forgiveness is part of it as well. I love that. The World Health Organization, the stats show from 2019 that close to 800,000 people die of suicide per year, mostly between the ages of 15 and 19, by form of ingestion of pesticide, hanging, firearms, the most common methods globally. And those that are at most risk for suicide are those experiencing conflict, disaster, violence, abuse, loss, a sense of isolation. And the suicide rates are high amongst vulnerable groups who experience discrimination, such as refugees, migrants, Indigenous peoples, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex, LGBTIQ persons, prisoners, and by far the strongest risk factor for a suicide is a previous suicide attempt. The stigma around or surrounding mental disorders and suicide means that many people thinking of taking their own life or who have attempted suicide are not seeking help and are therefore not getting the help that they need. This was, when I read this, I was like, oh, yeah, that's so true. Gareth, where do you see, though, how do you propose that people seek help and find help? Speaking from your own experience.
I think it's such a big thing. You know, like the sad thing about suicide is that when people talk about suicide survivors, they often refer to the family. So the people that have been left behind. And for someone that is considering, I don't know how to word it, for someone that is considering taking their own life, they see the hurt and pain and then they think, well, I don't want to talk about it. But I think it's, you know, for me, and that's why I'm so passionate about it, is that more suicide survivors, as in those who have attempted it, need to kind of like speak up. And I'm not saying that everybody has to, but, you know, that's why I speak so openly about it, because I know what it's like to be at that point where you don't think you have any way out. And if I had met someone, I can't say whether it would change things, but if I had met someone back then who had been in that place and failed, so to speak, I would have found it a lot easier to talk to them than to go and talk to someone else. Because often when you talk about suicide, you're met with, oh, just think positive. You know, oh, you're so lucky. You know, there's so many people that have got it worse off than you. Like, my dark place is my dark place. Nobody except me knows my dark place. And sometimes when you get to that point, the only thing that you are thinking about is everybody around you. You're not thinking about yourself. You're thinking about everybody else around you. You know, so if I had had someone that had been there that I could have spoken to, I think it would have made things a lot easier. You know, I'm really lucky. I call myself lucky. Like, I'm a suicide survivor in both senses of the word. I lost my dad, and my best friend died in front of me with suicide. And I myself have, I'm like just no, don't say that. This is a podcast. I'm just a guy who like went through a lot of difficult shit and tried to take his own life quite a few times until I realized, Jesus, I'm not even good at that. So I may as well give this living thing a blinking try. So, yeah, I think there needs to be more people that can be spoken to that won't say, oh, think positive, or, oh, look, you know, but that's just me.
Well, I'm with you. But like Tanya, what help needs to be in place in your opinion?
I mean, I don't know if I'm the best person to answer this, but first of all, I love and agree wholeheartedly with Gareth says. I think what people need more than anything in the world is to feel safe and a sense of belonging. And the sense of safety and the sense of feeling safe is by continuing to destigmatize mental health, suicide, depression, all these things, by continuing to make people more aware and become sympathetic and say, I don't understand what you're going through. I don't understand your dark place. What can I do to help? And I think, and a sense of belonging. I think the best thing, I think when you are in such a dark place, you feel very isolated and you feel very alone. You're thinking about everyone else, but you have no one that understands you. And building that groups or chat or talking that they do have opportunities to talk to people that have gone through what they're going through and they understand that they're not the only one. That's like huge, right? That suddenly gives you a sense of belonging and it makes you feel like less of an idiot. I mean, I'm exaggerating there, and I think one thing for everyone, and this is for maybe people that have people around them that are depressed or is struggling or contemplating suicide, hope is an amazing thing. It can be lost in an instant, but it can also be regained in an instant. So if I can speak to those of you out in the world that aren't struggling or not struggling to that extent and want to do something, hope is the easiest thing to offer. Smile at a stranger. Give someone a gentle tap on the back without any words. Send your friend an emoji text just so they know. It doesn't have to be a deep conversation or like little things, just being acknowledged, you know, smiling at a homeless person. It helps them feel like they're a person, they're part of society. And the minute they have a sense of I'm being acknowledged, there's belonging. I can talk to someone. I'm not alone. Those are like such powerful tools for someone who's going through these hard times. And for people who aren't, a smile is free and it can change the world. You know, it can change someone's day. It can change someone. It might just be that single moment that someone needs to start a chain of there is hope for me. I can turn this around. So just the best things in life are free. And for those of us who can give them, they mean the world to people who don't have them right now. So that would be my cheer for the rest of the world.
Thank you. We're all smiling. Mark, if we could raise the alarm and with things that need to be in place where we've said, no, you know, we need to talk about things. How do you feel, or what do you feel needs to be in place to, I don't want to say prevent suicide, but limit it? So, I mean, 800,000 dying a year is a lot.
Firstly, what really is tragic is the age, which is the highest, 15 to 19. I know those times of my life was really dark. It's when you don't fully know yourself, you are a little bit insecure in your own skin and you can be easily led, and it's really easy to not have a lot of self-worth. I think I'm not sure how qualified I am actually, like Tanya said, to really have a strong opinion. I loved what Gareth shared and what Tanya shared. I just think it's important to know that it's quite common for people to have thoughts, I don't want to be here, I'd be better off dead. I know myself, I've had those thoughts throughout my life. I've never really acted on it and tried to kill myself, and that's why I say I don't know how qualified I am on that. But what I am qualified to say is, especially with addiction, it's really important you know that you have to admit yourself that you are going through problems before anyone else can ever help and support you. Admit to yourself, I'm going through challenges here. There's problems that I am facing. So the first step I would say is to admit you have a problem. Never suffer alone. Seek help of a friend, mentor, family member, a teacher, someone that you trust. Seek help. And I like what Gareth said. Seek help and support from someone who has been through what you are going through. So I'm sure there'll be support groups. I'm sure there's groups out there that Sashka can recommend to you. But never suffer alone in silence. It's really common for people to have these thoughts when you are going through those low moments. But I know one day you can feel like that, and in a couple of days you will be back positive and feeling better. It can be very, very up and down. So my tips or my guidance would just be, admit that you are going through challenges, that you are having problems. Get support, don't suffer in silence, and know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. Life is a roller coaster, and just be sure to seek support and some guidance from someone that can give it to you, because it's so easy to go on a downward spiral. And just know you're not alone. It's very, very common. It's nothing to be ashamed of, and don't suffer in silence.
I love that. Yeah, because that's what pretty much a lot of people in suicide, they do is they suffer in silence, suffer in inverted commas. All right, so we're going to wrapping this up with rapid fire questions. Mark, what is your least favorite and most favorite ritual?
My most favorite ritual, I find meditation and gratitudes are quite therapeutic to do, and the impact that they have on you is so great. It's just a great thing to stick to, especially gratitude. I feel gratitude, at first you start off slow and it's probably hard to think of more things, but as you go into it and get more and more disciplined with them, more and more things do come into your mind to be grateful of. So I think those are my favourites. I would say my least favourite is probably the exercise thing. But I do make sure I take my dog on regular walks, because it does get those endorphins going. And sometimes diet as well. I think diet is important, drinking fresh water, eating fresh foods. But I find that can be a challenge at times, because I do like all of the bad things as well. So I'm just being really, really honest here. And those are the first things that have come to mind.
I love it. Thank you, Mark. Tanya, what is your go-to pick-me-up ritual and why?
Gosh, I'd say I have a whole host of them, but I suppose there's two that come to mind. I'm not a meditator. I'm kind of like you, Sasha, in the sense of I freak out when I meditate. Not freak out, but it doesn't calm my mind. So the solution that I found, this is when I'm just feeling, just whether I'm tired, stressed, grumpy, unhappy, whatever it is, I set a timer on my phone and for 10 minutes, and I just lie down flat, which is similar to meditation, but there's no place for me to go. I don't have to clear my mind. I just let myself think through everything until I found this kind of sense of peace. And this 10 minutes, because there's a timer on, I don't feel like I'm going to overdo it or underdo it or fall asleep. And I feel like in those 10 minutes, I get like a mini reboot. But I think the second one, when I'm really overwhelmed or when life is really hard, I have my mantra that I go to time and time again. And it's the only place I can be is right here and right now. When there's too much in my mind and it's just all good, I just remind myself over and over, the only place I can be is right here and right now. And with that, I kind of find that, all right, I can release a lot of other stuff that doesn't need to be there. So I suppose those are my two biggest tools. Gratitude, going to sleep, being great. I do it when I go to bed. I just list off what I'm grateful for and, thank the universe and whatever. But I suppose my two go-tos are the 10 minutes and the mantra.
Love it. Gareth, what routine grounds you and stops you from floating in times of anxiety? And why?
Writing. Because it helps me. It helps me express things that I can't express verbally. Like sometimes I just scribble. So writing is the thing that grounds me the most. And another one is praying. I have very strong faith in a God of my own understanding. And if things get too much, I just shut my eyes and say, fucking hell, please help.
I love it. I think, fucking hell, I need help. I love it. Thank you so, so much, Gareth, Tanya, Mark, for being here and just conversing about self-compassion, forgiveness, suicide, how it works, how it has been, how we've gotten through it. Even though we still maybe even have the thoughts, there's just tools in order to get through that dark spice, that rabbit hole. We'll just be Alice in Wonderland. I'm coming out. Thank you so very, very, very much. I wish you a beautiful day and just staying in the present right now. And we'll see what tomorrow brings.
Yes.
Thank you, Sashka.
Thank you
so much. Love you lots.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for joining me on this episode. Please do me a favor. Subscribe and download this episode. Why? Because only the stats I have to show me that I have listeners on here on the podcast, because I don't see any names or information when you do this, unless you leave me a personal comment, just as an FYI. Just by downloading and subscribing helps me see that you are here, which means a lot to me as well as the contributors. And of course, you can get in contact with the Future Forward Hub team at hello@futureforwardhub.com and drop us some of your wisdom for Future Forward episode topics or apply to be a contributor. So I wish you an amazing day. Thank you very much. And if you need any guidance with regards to recommendations for any experts and someone that you need to talk to or get in contact with our contributors, please do write hello@futureforwardhub.com. And for now, I love you lots and I thank you for your attention. Take care. Bye.